Mega-Mosques. There's a mega-mosque slated to be built in London and one slated to be built in New York. Well, people are complaining about the one that's going to be built in London. I hope they build a nice big mosque in London and enjoy themselves there. It's great. They can build a giant church, and they've done it over the years. They can build a mosque. You know, anybody's got a problem, they're being xenophobic. Now, the mosque in New York is a different story. That mega mosque is going to be built near the 9/11 tragedy site. People who want to build this mosque, they aren't terrorists. But a lot of people are outraged that this mosque is going to be a slap in the face to all of the people who lost their lives there. You're a black man and you're getting ready to move into your new apartment. You find out the next door neighbor lady was attacked by some black men. She hasn't had many experiences with black men other than this attack. And the landlord says, you know, she's frightened of black people. When she sees you, she's going to be outraged and upset. Well, what are your choices? Well, you can move in and say, hey, I didn't do anything to this lady. I'm going to move into this house. It's my right. Or you could move down the hall or not move in the project at all. Or you could write her a letter and talk to her and say, hey, look, I understand that you're really uncomfortable around black people because of things that happened to you in your life. I want to let you know that I'm not them. And I'd like you to give me an opportunity to prove that to you. Which one's the better choice? Let me give you another example. There's this religion. We'll call the religion Islam. And we'll call the followers Muslims. And they have this prophet. They call him Muhammad. And they get really upset when you draw pictures because they consider him sacred. I know sacredness isn't something we're really into in America very much. They have this Draw Muhammad Day, and it's perfectly legal to draw pictures, and you feel like you're expressing your free speech. But there's no reason to do it to inflame them, even though you feel that their outrage may be unjustified because you don't believe that Muhammad's your prophet and you think they're being silly. You know it hurts them, so just don't do it. Now let's move over. You're getting ready to move into this new great site in New York, and I know you have good intentions. But when you move there, a lot of people will feel outraged. A lot of people will see this building as an attack, and the next attack, and a slap in their face. People will drive by and they will say things. Whenever any angry right-wing group makes a video, they'll take photographs of this building. That this building will be further proof of the Islamization of America. And again, the slap in the face to all the people who died and suffered. And you'll say, I'm completely justified. We had nothing to do with that. And you move into your place. That's one choice. The next choice is, while they're down there protesting, and they are protesting, they're protesting at the site. Keep the Muslims out. They're trying to assault us. They're trying to build on this hallowed ground where they destroyed and took away lives. Imagine if the Muslims showed up at the site while the protesters were there. A fight's going to start. Oh my gosh, and the Muslims are here, and these people are protesting a building. You're not going to build here. You're not going to build here. And then the Muslims say, okay, we won't build here. Here's what we're going to do. We won't build here unless all of the families in this tragedy get together and vote. If after they vote, the overwhelming majority doesn't want us here, we will move to another location. Not because we have to, but because we know that even though we don't feel it's justified because we had nothing to do with 9/11 tragedy, even though we don't feel it's justified, we don't want to make you suffer unjustly. Even though to us, your suffering doesn't add up because you shouldn't be hating all Muslims. You should be upset about the radicals. But we're not radicals. But for you, if it hurts you, we're going to go somewhere else. But if we go somewhere else, we'd like you to help us. Because we want to establish in this building a museum. It's not just a mosque. There's also a museum to honor the lives of all the people that died there that day, including many Muslims, many of our Muslims. See, Muslims really lost more at 9/11 than anybody. They get the least. See, this is the 3 ways Muslims lost. 1, Muslims aren't allowed to suffer for 9/11. Muslims lost their status in America. They've become the lowest status in America, easiest to abuse. And 3, Muslims died at 9/11. They should have more right to build a mosque there than anybody. But if I was the PR manager for the Muslims, I would say, protest the development of this new building and only decide to put the building there if you're invited. And say, we'll move to another location, we'll sell that land and get some other land and move to another spot, and we'll only do it, not because we're forced to do it, we'll only do it in honor of the loss of all of those. Now all of a sudden, the people who were fighting and saying, get rid of those stinking Muslims, what's going to happen to them when the Muslims decided on their own that they're not going to build there because they know it hurts you? They're going to say, well, their hate will implode within themselves. And they'll be faced with the fact that Muslims showed them a great generosity, a generosity that they didn't need to show. And they will be humbled. We'll move in another location, but on one stipulation, we'd like you to come to our grand opening. Please. It could be, rather than having a building stand up in defiance, even though the Muslims are doing it with a good heart, even though that building would stand in defiance at ground zero, and people would shake their fists, and every time they would say, oh, those Muslims, they'd look at that building, that building could be moved to another location, and people could go by and say, you know, the reason why the Muslims are over there, because they knew, even though it was wrong, they knew how upset we New Yorkers were that they were going to be there. So they moved. They didn't have to. They moved out of compassion. That's powerful. Put it in their hands. If Muslims got together and protested the development of the new mosque in ground zero, it could start a swirl of peace and acceptance and understanding that could save Muslim lives and could build bridges, really build bridges. I see this development as not a bridge builder, but a bridge burner at this point. That's the way it feels to me.